Hi, everyone. This is Mike Lewis. I'm the VP Marketing and Sales here at Awareness, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this week's webinar, which is titled Inspiring Social Change. I'm pretty excited about it because I think one of the topics that we learned that a lot of the people that come to these webinars a lot wanted to hear about was how to really impact change inside your organization around social media. It's something that a lot of organizations struggle with, and I'm really thrilled to have John Nielsen on the line with us today. We're talking about this in a lot more detail. It's a really interesting subject. I had the chance to just tell John I had the chance to go through the slides last night, and it is going to be one of the best topics I think that we've had in a while. So I'm just going to go ahead. You know who the two people are that are going to be on the line with us. I'm Mike Lewis and John, who's the founder, the co-founder, of RUFrank.com, is also going to be here. But before I get into that, I just wanted to run through some quick housekeeping things with you. First, we encourage conversation. We want you talking about today's session. We want you to provide feedback and connect with each other. So the easiest way to do that is through Twitter. And the way to chat with everybody is use the hashtag #PoundAwarenessInc with any of your tweets related to today's session. If you happen to have any technical issues, the easiest way to get help is to go up to that help button in the upper right-hand corner of the WebEx client and contact WebEx directly. We also have a WebEx producer on the line with us today who will be available to help out. So if you have any other specific questions, feel free to use the chat button that's embedded in the WebEx client as well. So again, want to thank everybody for coming. Before I jump in and introduce John and go forward with everything, I want to give you a little background on Awareness, who we are and what we do. Awareness, we provide a social marketing software solution called the Social Marketing Hub. It's laser focused on the needs of marketers who are looking to get as much as they can out of their social media strategy. And you can see our traditional customers and partner slide right there on the front page there to give you a sense of some of the customers we work with. But to give you a sense of where the product came from, did a lot of research, worked with a lot of organizations besides social media, and what we found is that they really fell into 4 buckets. And what was really cool about this is it aligned with a study that Jeremiah Ouyang and the folks at Altimeter put together, where they actually categorized people that are in the social media space based on how engaged they are in social media. So are they just listening to different channels, or are they measuring and taking those next steps to really be effective at it? And how many channels are they using? And the magic number they came up with was 7. And what we found is that a lot of organizations fell into a bucket called the wallflowers. People are just starting to get involved, but are looking to move up. And in actuality, depending on where you are in this quadrant that they had, everybody is trying to move up to that maintenance category. Everybody wants to be a better performer at it. And a challenge that most organizations struggle with is the fact that there's not a lot of centralization of social media inside their organization. So our software helps with that, and that's really the thesis on which we built the Social Marketing Hub. It's built for organizations of all sizes, so the price point's very low, but it allows organizations to get up and running and start to use and manage their social media more effectively across the organization. And to give you a sense of what the benefits of that are, is it allows you to publish content out to multiple channels at once. So you can publish stuff to your Twitter page, your Facebook account, and across multiple channels all at once. You can manage all that content in one location, measure how well that content is performing. So similar to a marketing campaign, if I'm pushing up content to multiple social channels, who's interacting with it? What's the reach of that content? How many comments are we getting? What are those comments? Who are the people that are commenting on it? And it actually allows you to engage with the audience that's engaging with your content. So through the hub, you can actually set up your staff so they can log in and actually communicate directly one-to-one with the individuals who are engaging with your content in any channel that they're engaging on. You have a central record of it all in one place. A lot of the companies we work with to gain control over all their social media programs, it allows them to centralize their programs so everything's under one house. So instead of having to log into Facebook in different areas, it gives them one place to log in, and it allows them to evolve from a tactical to a strategic social media offering. Finally, it gives them all the tools they need to measure success along the way. So that's the Social Marketing Hub. If you're interested in learning more about it, I'd ask you to contact me directly. My Twitter account is I'm Boston Mike on Twitter, so you can either DM me or send me a tweet right away. You can also use my Awareness email address and just feel free to drop me a note and say, hey, Mike, I want to take a look at the software if you have some time. I'd love to set up some time to show it to anybody on the line. So it's $250 per month, and like I said, I'd be happy to show it to everybody here. In fact, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time if you have some time, we're going to be doing a demo of the Social Marketing Hub, and it'll be with our Director of Product Development, Product Marketing, Will Eisner, who's going to take you for a little tour and let you know other ways that you can get started with everything. And to sign up for that, just go to tinyurl.com/hubdemo. And that is all I have. That's the only sales pitch you're going to hear today. The rest of the session is going to be focused on how you can inspire social change within your organization. We're really lucky to have the co-founder of Are You Frank, John Nielsen, with us today. John, what's interesting about John, and well, specifically about Are You Frank, I spent a lot of time researching their agency, and they've done a lot of really cool stuff for a lot of really clients of a lot of different sizes, but help them really engage and connect and help brands implement their social media strategy. John himself has been in the space for a long time. Most importantly, 20 plus years in marketing, and the last 8 helping brands in social media. So we're really lucky to have him on the line. John, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Good to go.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks again for joining us today. And I'm going to let you take it from here, and I'll get back on in a little bit with some of the Q&A from the audience.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for taking an hour out of your busy day today. Hopefully, you'll get some really good ideas that you can take back to the crowd in a couple hours and start applying some of these insights, tips, and techniques. I'm going to just check in with a couple things here and think about who you guys are who are listening here today. And I'm assuming that a lot of the folks on right now are very passionate about social media, no question. You came to it for 101 different reasons. I myself, as a writer, came to it about 8 years ago because of the promise of self-expression. That was very natural for me, and I bet that you guys have your own reasons for coming to it from a very passionate point of view. Clearly, you see a business opportunity for more integration and utilization and application of all the cool stuff out there. And unfortunately, third, you're also a little frustrated about how it's been going. Different kinds of resistances, obviously, that you guys are running into. So really, that's who I think I'm talking to today, and look forward to sharing about 3.5 really cool things. Number one, just spending a couple minutes on the case for collaboration. We'll go through that pretty quickly because I think most folks already know that. Just want to level set a little bit. And then dive into some specific ideas to inspire collaboration or social change in the organization, and then back that up with a few case studies that we actually have created ourselves here at areyouFrank.com. And then the 3.5 point is for the best tweet on everything I'm talking about, positive or negatively. Obviously, we want everybody to be frank today. We have a free Frank in a Box for social media brainstorming that we'll get into a little bit more detail later on, and we'll be offering one of those for free at the end of the session for the best tweet. Well, thanks again for joining us. Long intro. Let's cut to the chase. We started thinking about this talk today from the perspective of voice. I'm sure most people have read the Clue Train Manifesto sometime during the last 10 years, and we really thought about the promise of the web being the return of voice again, and that actually causing a lot of problems. But here is a depiction of Brian Solis's conversation prism. All the sources are down the left there, so you can grab all this up directly if you're so inspired. But we love the beauty of this. We love the integration of this. We love the expansiveness of this. We actually love the aesthetic of it too. That's something to talk about a little bit later on. But it can also be pretty intimidating, pretty freaky to leadership, people who aren't on this call, other people that you're trying to inspire. But the return of voice from a branding perspective is very powerful within all levels of the organization. I just wanted to start with that. The next slide here really is about the so-called 2-point open knowledge economy, in which co-creation, collaboration, contribution, a lot of keywords here really reign. And employees, because clearly folks are using so much social media technology outside of work, the line is totally blurring on how they want to collaborate, work with other folks inside of the organization. And that thing about self-expression with others in community is very powerful. No question that trust and transparency are as important to company reputation as the quality of products and services. This is borne out every year by the Edelman Trust Barometer. And, while people want to self-express individually, clearly we want more and more transparency up and down and horizontally throughout the organization. This is a great study that has just come out, the new IBM, a global study that came out just in September, talking about, from a global perspective, the three most important things that organizations need to look at to be successful, competitive, innovative, and distinctive moving forward. And they summed it up about, smarter, faster, better collaboration via the collective intelligence, within the organization. I like sort of the last line here that they're talking about from the study. Enterprises must adapt innovations, apply them across organizations, find new ways to connect people to each other and to information, both internally and externally. So, part of these opening slides is also about giving you some more background, ammunition, case studies, current research to take to your leadership, decision makers within your organization to strengthen your case for collaboration. So that's where some of these perspectives are coming from as well. The next slide talks a lot about the business drivers behind Enterprise 2.0, and this is from the 2.0 Adoption Council. And it's just a nice perspective on how social media collaboration technology is being used within organizations to drive value. Clearly, on the far left, 92%, mainly using the technology to connect colleagues across teams and geographies. Jumping to the right, the next highest, 88%, enabling access to subject matter experts. And then over to the left, they kind of bop left to right, increasing productivity, capturing and retaining institutional knowledge. This is kind of a setup slide. A lot of this is in a way pretty intuitive. And we know that social media and collaboration generates business value throughout the organization. But then when we take a look at some research coming out from Gartner, and they're not the only ones, we have some issues about, although there's great objectives and strategy set up, there's some issues in terms of how that technology is being utilized in an integrated, holistic way throughout the organization. And so this speaks to a lot of the resistance that's going on within organizations. Clearly, there's a lot of fragmentation of the technology, small pockets of natural energy and campaigns happening throughout the organization, which is great, but sort of disconnected from a lot of other initiatives and a lot of other people, a lot of other offline initiatives and campaigns that might be going on. So all of that obviously sub-optimizes, the investment in the first place. The other natural barriers to collaboration, here's where we get to some of the juicier, more human, I think in our overview we talked about the messy part of social media, and that's the people. There are some natural or physical barriers to collaboration. These are kind of basic. We kind of know about these, and the list goes on for a long time. And there are also self-created barriers. We'd love to hear some more of your own barriers to your social media success within the organization. By using the hashtag #SMBarriers. These are just a few that our friends and myself put up here just to get going to really indicate, the attitudes we have about this. Whether it's this one that I find wild, I'm too busy to be authentic. I still can't wrap my head around that. It sounds like one hell of a paradox that is sort of flies in the face of, the real potential and opportunity with everything we're talking about here today. The notion of not wanting to bother my friends, it's intrusive, it's not what I do, it's not how I am, so why would I market that way, why would I collaborate that way, why would I, talk that way with others? There's notions and issues of sharing proprietary process information, proprietary secrets, proprietary product information, and I'm putting the adjective proprietary in front of all that because I think that's the question. Is it proprietary? Within organizations, clearly we think everything that we do is the most amazing stuff in the world, and nobody else is doing it, and nobody else could do it as well as we could do. We'll kind of talk about ego in a couple minutes, but the notion of being very protective and proprietary can really get in the way of some opportunities with this technology. And don't get me wrong, of course, there's some stuff that you want to keep to yourself, but at the same time, within an industry or a category, or an initiative or within a cause. There's so much opportunity clearly to leverage the collective wisdom of the crowds and sort of, we always talk about raising all the ships in the harbor. Everybody who's kind of in that direction together from a perspective of abundance, there's all kinds of opportunity and niches to be mined for purposes of profit if we have to go there. The whole thing here, the second last one, Jody, one of the folks on our team talking about, people saying bad things about us. I'm sure most people on the call have heard about the notion that they're already saying things about our brand or our service or our product. So that's the notion of lead, follow, or get out of the way. Do some listening, get involved, especially within organizations. We know what people are talking in the bathroom, in the hallways, at lunch, after work. What about kind of getting in front of that and being part of that and being a catalyst? And we'll get into some ideas about that later on. And then this whole thing about my manager won't let me spend time on that. Middle management is quite fascinating, I think, in this whole discussion, and we'll get to some more specifics about them in a second. So when we take a look at the different visible resistances to collaboration, which is really at the bottom, the different kinds of evidence that show up, we take a look at three different levels, at least. This is a generalization, but it's better than just kind of talking about everybody as a whole. There's a lot of different motivations, a lot of different things that different people are working for, and all that good stuff. And so at the very least, we look at leadership, middle management, and employees. And so if we just step through leadership for a second, clearly from a goals point of view, growth, vision, and profit are paramount. And some of the fears that start to show up, whether this is the stuff that keeps them up at night or more progressive, transparent leaders who are talking about this within their organization, there's a fear of not making the numbers. We don't have the right team. Don't know how to transform the organization to be all these things, more open and more transparent, and kind of staying stuck because of the not knowing, if you will. The fear of long-term investment costs and the time involved with that. And then while doing all that, not remaining competitive enough. So these are some of the fears that start to show up, and then you start to see the resistances that appear in terms of lack of clear, consistent, open communication. This thing about clinging to the status quo, in our experience at a leadership level, depending on who we're talking about here, life can be good. Been doing it for a long time. The status quo is working for them. Unfortunately, them tends to be a very small group of people and may not be serving the broader community at large within an organization. So a little contentious there, but definitely something to think about and maybe poke at. The resistance is about not empowering other people. There's no integrated tech strategy. Technology gets put ahead of people. That can be an issue too. And then overly dependent on legacy systems, just not changing same stuff. So some of the resistances that we see with leadership, from middle management point of view, goals being direction, efficiency, accountability. Some of the fears, they're stuck in the middle. Unsure of their ability to meet the vision of leadership, lack of employee trust on the other side. So you get into a tightening, micromanagement of what's going on within the organization. And you start to get more control and domination and a muting of the voice of other people, which obviously really suboptimizes what they're there for. There's a great, some great research that came out recently in July 2010 by the Boston Consulting Group talking about a new deal for middle management. Really them obviously being the linchpin from the leadership vision and employees to actually evolve and become more of a catalyst and allow more empowerment as opposed to the entrenchment. So check that out, the Boston Consulting Group, July 2010, the new deal for middle management. And then employees obviously wanting voice, creativity, recognition, and then the fears that are showing up are not feeling supported by manager or leadership, and not having a clear line of sight to the big picture vision is often a problem. And then what you get in terms of the evidence and the resistance is, I'm just going to say busy, lots of workarounds going on, disengagement, even worse, and turnover. So a lot on that slide. Just kind of wanted to share some of the resistances that we're seeing among leadership, middle management, and employees. The thing is, the business reinvention is already happening, and I do think it's about the customer. We can make up a lot of stories about what's going on within the organization, but we're clearly in business to serve customers. So we pulled this slide from the Chess Media Group from the Enterprise 2.0 white paper, just talking about the evolution, of customer relationship management to social customer relation management. And I think that there's a lot of good themes here, moving from the science department to really everyone contributing, and you can kind of go through the whole thing here yourself. And for me, this really represents a lot of the transformation that is occurring, and people are resisting for reasons that they shouldn't be, because this is already occurring in many cases. So that means really you have to be ready to reinvent with it. I'll try to do this one a little quicker. We tried to keep our slides down here to a minimum, but so we loaded a lot of content up on a few slides. So this is our model, our Frank model. Let's just take leadership here for a second. Thinking about the reaction to change, the new social media technologies, to more collaboration within an organization, their reactions, the resistances they have, and their responses. And then we have some fun with reality at the bottom. So just briefly on leadership, my employees can't be wasting time at work with social media. We've heard that a lot. We understand that. There's some ignorance around that. There's some different kinds of pushback about that, and there's some education opportunities. But the resistance shows up is that, I don't understand those business benefits. And I'm afraid that it will put us at a competitive disadvantage. So the response is this type of lockdown on any and all social media sites within company walls for protection purposes. And, the reality here is, smartphones, clearly people can use their phones to connect with, whoever they want, whenever they want, whatever sites they want, at really whatever time. And in fact, some recent Forrester research says that 1/3 of employees currently use unsanctioned technology. So, again, the resistances really don't make sense, given, the current reality. So when you run through this from a middle management perspective, a reaction to change, social media, new technologies, my day is so full, how am I supposed to add this to my workload? The resistance is I'm not feeling empowered, supported, equipped enough to fully implement this with my team. So you get the response of collaboration through online tools, no thanks. I'm actually going to focus and focus on and save my own ass. And, and that just becomes a very frank, a reality within organizations when we're really confronted or thrown, there's too much change thrown at us. The irony of that comes from Daniel Pink from our perspective, who's talking about traditional management being creaky. And so really the more they bear down, actually the more exposed they become. So I don't know exactly how to say that. We're pretty frank folks here, so we often say it like that. Not everybody would be receptive to that direct type of messaging, but that's really what's going on. From an employee perspective, back to this notion of voice, my voice doesn't count around here, so really what's the point? I don't understand the overall vision of our company and how I fit into it. Is the resistance that starts to show up. And then you have the response. I'll clock in at 9 and I'm out of here at 5. Don't really expect much more from me than that. And the reality for leadership and middle management who are, really flowing from left to right, who is kind of creating this situation through their resistance of new technologies and change and all the collaboration we're talking about, is really creating a disengaged group of employees. And the Gallup research says that, up to 54% are non-engaged, 17% are actively disengaged. Fascinating part about the actively disengaged is those people are actually actively trying to sabotage people who are engaged. Kind of a really, really, really expensive perspective of disengaged employees, or the notion of presenteeism. I'm here, but I'm not really here. So when we talk about transformation, really, which is all about changing those different kinds of mindsets and the resistances we just ran through, we have a lot of different barriers that people don't even know existed really, that we're really trying to get rid of. So, the barriers here, my filter, how I look at things, my perception, the stories I tell, the fear. We get into Carl Jung, and we can go a little deeper about ego and shadow and why I'm resisting change and why I'm staying entrenched. That starts to get fascinating. And it's really parts of our job. A very important part, I believe, and what we're really talking about and focus on today is the notion of making barriers disappear that you didn't know existed. So from that perspective, we're sort of talking about holding the technology, avoiding the shiny new stuff, and avoiding what's been called the GMOOT syndrome in boardrooms across America. Get me one of those. The acronym is GMOOT. Get me one of those. Just chilling on that a little bit and really honing in on the people part. And from a Frank perspective, we're really not about systemic change. We like to see that long term, but what we're really about is summed up nicely in the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, talking about bright spots. Not solving problems, but looking for opportunities to copy success. Focus on what's working and do more of it. Spiked, of course, by all the new collaboration and technology, social technology tools that we're talking about. And really what that usually entails is hopefully what we're talking about here today, more grassroots solutions that have velocity, as opposed to the long, drawn-out, very expensive, cumbersome, complicated systemic change, actually that a lot of organizational development people do talk about. So we're pushing off that and trying to get more into action. So what kind of action and who to focus on? I think people have probably seen this before, the social technology adoption continuum, and how people are participating in social media. Really you have about 10% who are actively engaged and creating content and editing content in any number of ways. And then you have 90% clearly who are part of the social media experience, but they're observers. They're passive and hanging back. So it brings up a couple different strategy opportunities of how you want to approach this. But we're really about the top 10%, the bright spots there, as opposed to the 90%, which might represent a little bit more systemic change, taking a little bit longer to kind of push that whole 90% audience up into the editor-creator collaborative space. And this, from Forrester, actually gets a little bit more granular about the 10% and 90%. And we think that the 10%, is represented with the creators, the critics, the collectors, and the joiners. Those people are participating in the content and editing it in some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of detail here. I know this will be available afterwards, so you can check that out, and clearly down the left, access this directly if you want. Spectators and inactive start to actually represent about 90%. You may or may not want to spend your time there. Our point of view today is that the joiners up are really the sweet spot, and as Chip and Dan Heath talk about, really the bright spots that you want to leverage. So let's quickly get into three different ways at least to inspire social change. We take a look at alignment and focus. Number one, just connecting the big picture to day-to-day individual workflow. There's a huge discussion about keeping all of change really and these technologies and social media in the workflow. If it's going to be too far to the left or too far to the right of what I'm already doing, how I'm getting paid to do it, how I'm evaluated on that, I'm going to get my bonus at the end of the year, obviously you start to increase more resistance. So for leadership, the other thing here that we're showing that we believe is from a leadership perspective, focus on more results-oriented, rational business benefits. Middle management, perhaps a little bit more of a process kind of perspective, and with employees, you want to, get more into the recognition benefits. So the ahas here, I think you can read these pretty quickly, and I'm trying to watch this clock and get to some juicy creative examples as well. So I'll just top line these for now. The leadership aha moments clearly tying social media initiatives to business imperatives that they already care about. Talent retention is huge. Acquisition, greater efficiencies, innovation. Do a little digging, go on exploration if you don't know what these things are, and figure out how to, tie your initiatives back to some of these more global imperatives already going on within the organization. Clearly, the case study feedback, create, track, and measure a simple one-page dashboard reviews with analytics that they care about. Middle management, work offline with them to help them and others collaborate. For a lot of us, collaboration comes naturally. Not everybody has that chip in them. So with the middle management, who's really immersed in a lot of fear these days, there might be some offline opportunities to work with them. And employees, I mentioned keeping it in the flow, co-creating with them, where the pain points are in their process and their day, and demonstrate how they can connect and collaborate with others already doing it in the organization. So here is something pretty funky. You can tell we're all about the visualization of a lot of these opportunities and strategies. An align and focus example that we created for a product that we have developed called EcoHive, and this is our so-called Eco Catalyst. It's really to help people within organizations understand the business value of sustainability initiatives within their organization and really start to connect, you can see marketing, different functions within the organization around this initiative. I'm not asking you to read all of this, understand all of this. You can download it on the far left there is the link. But what might be pretty powerful is to actually create one of these for your specific organization goals and social media objectives within your organization and use some of the different objectives that we have here as a guide to build one of these for yourself. What I'm talking about is in the middle, everybody wants to inform folks of what's going on. How do we equip them is the next ring with tools to be more successful, and then how do we continue to engage, and then what action are we really looking for? This is a powerful way to really get a lot of people connected on the collaborative business value of what we're talking about here today, more social media technology, so that more people can see the same thing, but from their own lens. This is one of the funnest phrases. We try to stay away from acronyms, but we're all about boobiya. Being unreasonable and being in action. We really believe that we're all hardwired to success, especially the people on this call today. Clearly educated, passionate about social media. And so it's a time to really step out there and take some calculated risks. Entrepreneurial spirit within organizations, is very powerful and very well needed. And then, just taking a leap, a strategic, intelligent leap. So in that context, we're talking about identifying, sparking, and promoting natural pockets of energy. From a leadership perspective, demonstrating current team success and propose how social media can spike their integrated future success, tying it again to what's already going on and going that route with middle management, integrating managers with teams already engaged in social media campaigns. And again, the offline coaching part, really valuable, a great way to continue to build relationships with the organization. I mean, you're in this for long term, so that's extremely valuable. From an employee perspective, introducing new social media strategies, tools, tactics to amp whatever they're already doing, and then helping them understand what they're doing with the social media campaigns and projects and how that connects back to the big picture, because that's on the far left what the leadership dudes will care about. So this notion of being unreasonable, we actually saw a Seth Godin post the other day talking about being unreasonable is the new reasonable. And when you think about the parity, commodity in our world, unreasonableness and really stepping out there, searching the community for bright spots in these ways, we believe that's a lot of potential. So how this shows up for in a campaign that we did for ING, the boobiya part on the far right, easier is everywhere, work in progress. Rather than spend a lot of time strategically trying to figure out why ING at this point in time had a lot of different cultural challenges within the organization, collaboration challenges, a lot of M&A activity, a lot of different legacy systems not talking to each other, very systemic big challenges within the organization. They said, well, we don't have time, we don't want to play with that, we're going to dive in and get people to collaborate through this so-called work in progress. That involved a lot of different elements here. This is just the homepage of an internal portal on the internet that obviously had a blog on the far right written by Solomon Davies. We went recruiting somebody who had credibility with employees. It wasn't a marketing, with all due respect, somebody from marketing kind of putting out the company line. Christy Show was a very funky lady from Minot, North Dakota, who just had an energy all to herself, and we did a series of videos that went out and celebrated the success that was going on within ING throughout the country. Then there was some user-generated stuff like a calendar. Walking the talk in the bottom left is all about getting the leaders to get in on this conversation and really co-create some of the solutions to the challenges that they were facing internally. So a lot of different levels here. We'd love to dive in and happy on any of these examples to continue the conversation. I'm going to keep rolling here, watching the time, and knowing that we have just a few more slides left, and would love to hear from everybody in a Q&A session as well. Really, I think this is what we're talking about, is the opportunity of becoming a collaboration catalyst as a way to inspire social exchange within your organization. Figure out ways to provide direction, show people where to go, how to act, what goals to pursue through a social media technology lens, and create connections and conversations that are integrated and holistic and tied to other strategies, offline and online, and building big wins with baby steps. So from a leadership perspective, remembering one of our favorite quotes, your transformation is a stone rolling downhill. What that means is that, transformation is sometimes slow, it's perpetual, it's always happening. There's really, I think, more of a spiritual perspective here about being patient with it. If you're seeing breakthroughs, keep capitalizing on those and leveraging those and accepting that everybody's on this business transformation journey at a different level, different path, and definitely different pace. So do a lot more tracking and celebrating and promoting wins at the right time, and let leadership see that kind of straightforward stuff. Middle management, offering reminders on how to continually reinforce permission to employees. A big issue, a lot of employees want to do this, but obviously don't feel empowered within the organization to do that. And typically in the studies, there's a lot of finger pointing at middle managers. So that's kind of an obvious one to turn on its head and help middle management with. It just goes without saying, but again, from the perspective of middle management sort of being entrenched in their own world, helping them to shine the spotlight on their employees, and clearly helping managers document and package process to present replicable and scalable solutions on up to the organization, so that they can see smaller things that they can expand and blow through the organization in bigger ways, and middle managers get the credit for that and their teams. From an employee perspective, helping them stay focused on a simple suite of social media tools. If we flash back to the conversation prism at the beginning, maybe you want to just pick a handful of those. Maybe you don't want to go crazy with all 800 or whatever pieces of technology are on there. And keep that tight, and because you really want to encourage usage frequency and fun with social media. You want people to get connected and continue to use it when you're relying on them to generate content. So where this landed for us was our client, Burns Engineering. These guys are engineers, tough mindset, black and white. They like to collaborate, but in small groups. We really help them leverage their 50-year-old brand and help them with Temp Talk, put themselves out there through some LinkedIn groups that started to get some international membership pretty quickly. We also had some blogs going for them. RTDology was a funky, really collaborative effort that we created to help their engineers put out their expertise through different kinds of webinars like this that involve a lot of different folks within the organization. Some of this stuff sounds pretty basic, but from an engineer's point of view, who weren't real comfortable putting themselves out there in a lot of ways, it took a little while to work through the transformations we talked about and the resistances, and really create this two-way conversation with folks throughout the world, really, about their expertise. So some pretty funky stuff there. I see that it's about 10:02. I think what we're all about, thank you. We're grateful that you took some time out of your day to listen to our point of view on inspiring change within organizations. And we think that there's a real opportunity here to become heroes in this space. I don't know if people have read the book Burnoff and Shadler called Empowered, and their acronym is HERO, Highly Empowered and Resourceful Operatives. Kind of fun, I think, kind of what we're about, and continue the cause and the revolution and evolution, and sure hope that we've shared a couple ideas that you can put into play this afternoon. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled to share some ideas and definitely look forward to hearing some of your own.
Hey, John, it's Mike. That was great. We definitely got some really cool questions for you throughout the session that I'm going to shoot out in just a minute. But for everybody still online, I wanted to take you over a couple of things. First is any of the questions that come in, if you've submitted some already, we're taking them into account. But we're going to give one free Frank in a Box, which is plus 10 social media ideas from the folks over at areyoufrank.com to the person who submits the best question. So easiest way to do it, like I said, is just go right to Twitter, submit your questions using the hashtag HoundAwarenessInc, and we'll get those up and we'll start asking them to John as we get to the Q&A part. Real quick, there's a slide in here just about Frank. You get some idea of who their customers are. You can see some of the brands on there and just their whole approach to social media. And again, two things. We'll submit the slides after, so you'll have availability to the slides. And two, we'll also have a recording up in the next couple of days. So feel free to check both those out. And finally, if you enjoyed today's session, a couple of ways you connect with us. That's the folks here at Awareness. You can fan us on, if you're a fan of ours, or like us, I should say now, on Facebook. Just search for Pound Awareness Inc. webinars. Follow us on Twitter at Awareness Inc. You can visit our blogs at awarenessnetworks.com or join our favorite Facebook fan page, which is Social Media Marketing Best Practices. We share a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of advice on how you can get the most out of your social media programs. So if you're not a fan there already, jump over there and check it out on Facebook. Finally, I'm just going to get to the last slide here. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m., we have another webinar coming up with our good friend Jeremiah Aliang from the Altimeter Group, and he's going to be talking about the career path of the corporate social strategist. So he's done a lot of great research where he's pulled together some really interesting data from some big companies about how, and it ties great into today's webinar with John, how people are evolving their career and the path that they're taking in social media and how organizations are handling it, and specifically how the individuals are handling it. So if you haven't seen Jeremiah's report, it's available at altimetergroup.com, and just jump over to tinyurl.com and tinyurl.com/JOYang to register for the session. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the Q&A part. And John, you still there?
Yes, absolutely.
So one question that came in that I thought was really interesting, this came in through WebEx. If people are the biggest barrier, how much does the strategists or the people behind the scenes trying to implement social media, how much time do they spend trying to draw those other people in? Is it a huge part of their job right now?
Well, the folks that we work with and support, that is their job. That's why I led off with the part about being passionate about social media. And it's sort of embedded and integrated in everything that they're already doing, and they find different ways to evangelize in different types of meetings, social media opportunities, tool tactics. So it's sort of embedded in what they're already doing regularly, as opposed to something else that they have to do, because that's where we run into challenges of time and energy and can personally get drained. But when we can kind of tie it to what we're already doing, then it becomes who we are and what we stand for and really the mission we're on, and people get identified and respected and kind of move forward in that regard when they're seen doing that on a regular basis.
So is it really more evangelism then, internally? Is that how you see it, or is it more the kind of tactical day-to-day stuff?
Well, I think I would say both, and I would insert the word strategic. Evangelism is great, but again, it has to be tied to some real business objectives, what's already going on within the organization. So I think you need to understand the strategy, you need to be passionate, evangelical about it, and yeah, absolutely, you have to come up with some cool tactics that start to prove some ROI, or frankly, you're dead meat, right? The evangelism itself and the rah-rah enthusiasm won't quite cut it.
Well, you said the R word, so I'm going to ask, with your customers, how do you, is there a specific methodology, is there a specific, I don't know what the right word is, equation that you use to help them calculate ROI?
Yeah, well, without a doubt, what we do, we're talking primarily internally here today. So the value is really on, some of the different ways that ROI has been talked about. Return in involvement, for example. How are we getting more people involved, collaborating together on a single project, being more efficient on what that looks like, and then putting something out there that's more innovative than any smaller group could do on their own. And so when we track that with clients, especially with our engineer friends, we really start to see some results there. That is clearly a little tougher to pinpoint a specific dollar value to, but when we talk about involvement in the process and all the benefits of collaboration, that type of example, then you get some really meaty results.
Cool. That's really cool. So just in that same vein, what is the best way, well, first of all, how do you handle battles between departments over who owns social media? And that one came in through Twitter, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because of our experience in branding and marketing for over 20 years, we've always been sort of naturally collaborative, and we want to know, we want to hear from the product development people. We want to hear about what's going on with the marketing folks. We'd love to get HR involved, and these are people who typically don't talk to each other on any given day in most organizations in corporate America. So what we do at the outset is try to, invite people into these strategic meetings. And to be honest with you, the invitation alone goes a long way in building rapport and involvement and contribution. So we've had a lot of success, and I think that when we can involve people like that at the outset, and then obviously keep them contributing all the way through, you get something more holistic at the end that people can celebrate. The collaborative process in and of itself. So that doesn't always go perfectly, but I think with the right moderation and you stay focused on the strategic objectives, goals of the team, we've had more success that way without a doubt. And that's clearly how the ING site was built, involving those different kinds of groups. And with the engineers, with the Burns engineering example, we went beyond and involved a lot of different people, operations, obviously marketing, the engineers themselves, and got together that way and turned out something better as a group that resulted in any smaller numbers of those folks could do. So that's where we've had success.
No, that makes sense. I mean, my answer to that question all the time is put everybody involved inside a steel cage, and whoever comes out is the winner, and they actually own social media. So that's a much better answer than I would have given. Another question around policies and procedures. Someone asked, what are your thoughts on creating a social charter or manifesto for an organization and actually being able to implement that?
Yeah, we've had experience with both. We're all about manifestos, and we believe that's where the natural energy is, and let people connect emotionally and passionately, to what's going on. And we've written and created those. Actually, we have created them, and then we really try to inspire folks to write their own. There's a lot of, and it doesn't always have to be writing. Manifesto can be a visual manifesto as well, and that can involve a lot of collaborative people from different functions as well. That's always kind of fun. And then, clearly you need some kind of social media policy. In many cases, that already exists in terms of, what the employee policy is about communications and ethics and so on and so forth. I think that those are the two bookends, and then something in between that's kind of more common sense, respectful, open. I think those are at least three different pieces to that whole social media policy that need to be in place.
Cool. So, can we talk a little bit about, it's more specific about how some organizations do it, and we see this with a lot of our clients, especially some of the bigger ones, where they have a steering committee or a center of excellence specific to social media. So it'll involve a bunch of different departments to get together, and they make decisions on the overall social strategy, things like policies, things like that kind of stuff. And I know people have different views on that. Have you seen those work? Are they effective? And do you have any guidelines for people that are implementing those?
Well, I guess we tend to oversimplify things here in terms of, doing what makes sense for the organization. One thing to throw in here is that type of process that you just described is going to be different for a lot of different types of industries.
Absolutely.
Folks, electronics, technology, a lot of it comes pretty more naturally and I think pretty more easily and pretty more, much more quickly than financial services, healthcare, where the information gets that much more sensitive. So I think, obviously, it's context sensitive. You have to think about that. The guidelines, I think, would be to look at a lot of what's already existing, leverage that, the co-creative process, what employees would like or not like, how, to express. I think that there's some obvious stuff here about not sharing proprietary secrets or sensitive information, financial, healthcare, et cetera. And then kind of creating some space for people to get out there and experiment. Here we're talking mainly in this context about internal conversations. I know that those can be discoverable as well when it gets down to the nitty-gritty. But within an organization, those conversations are already going on, and it actually might be an opportunity to listen to some of those conversations and maybe lead and point them in some new ways that are more productive for the organization itself. I mean, I think what I'm not saying here, I think a lot of folks have heard this, is, the dysfunction in an organization will show up on a social network faster than anything else. So there is a cultural piece here. I don't think that you can just fix with policies. I think you got to hit some of these deeper resistances that we talked about and kind of unearth where the real barriers are, where the real resistances are. Take a hard look at those. We say frank look, and then create policies and procedures and all that fun stuff around that.
No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So the final question I'll ask is kind of a much more general one. So there are a lot of people on the line today that are just getting started in social media, that are trying to figure out what they do next, what they do first in a lot of instances, and it's really just, in a lot of cases, a percentage of their real job. And I say their real job meaning they're probably doing something else, whether it's PR or Marcom or customer service or marketing in general. They're doing something else, and someone said, you're now responsible for the social media aspect. What advice can you give to those folks? And are there any things that they should be looking at first outside of buying awareness and working with Frank that they can do to get off the ground on the right foot?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would look at, and we talk about this a lot, is the passion piece. Are these folks passionate about doing this? If they're not, I mean, there might be a pushback right there. If you're passionate about this and love this technology and can see the promise beyond what senior level leadership can, I think we're back to the evangelical piece. Really, taking a look at specific technologies that are emerging, looking outside of your industry, looking for new ways to build, as I mentioned earlier, a smaller suite of technology that can impact some very specific business goals, and keep it simple. Keep it really simple out of the gate. And I also mentioned earlier, create your own funky little simple one-page dashboard so that you can start, proving whatever ROI looks like, to you as an individual, and do some innovative, funky stuff. The other thing I would say is also think about the scalability thing. I think a lot of leaders you'll get a little pat on the back, perhaps, for the funky little project that you did, but they're going to be thinking about expandability and replicability and all that kind of stuff, and that can be a deal killer. So I keep my eye on how your little successes with the smallest suite of technology can actually, turn into something bigger when you reach the kind of success that you want.
Absolutely. Now, and that makes perfect sense. Well, John, we're right up at 3 o'clock Eastern time. I know it's different where you are. But I want to say thanks again. The session was great. I think just based on the early feedback we already got, I think a lot of people got some great stuff out of it. And so we really appreciate your time. For everybody on the call, just one last sales pitch, and it's actually a very light one. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Jeremiah is going to be on with us. We're going to be talking about his latest report from the Altimeter Group. We hope if you're around, you can take some time, you can register for it and join us then. John, again, sincerely, thanks a lot. We really appreciate your time and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everyone listening today. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Bye for now. See you guys. Bye.